Welcome back, everyone. So I recently saw a video floating around that you may have seen recommended to you, or maybe you've seen someone reacting to: the rise and fall of Fortnite events. Now, it's a great video that chronicles the entire history of Fortnite, so I definitely recommend checking it out. But to sum it up, Fortnite live events, which initially served to push the hype of the game to astronomical levels in seasons 1 through 10, have been in a gradual decline since around mid-Chapter 2. And speaking of mid, we just finished the Summer Escape event, a real nothing burger in the middle of a mostly nothing season. And everyone on social media seems to agree that Epic, well, they're just not bringing their best. Compared to the scale of old events during Chapter 1, it seems like players are getting the short end of the stick. And I agree in part, but I don't think the problem is entirely Epic Games' fault. And I don't think players would prefer if we went back to the old way. Let me explain. When it comes to Fortnite, we can readily separate the eras into different chapters, of which we are currently in Chapter 4. Chapter 1 of Fortnite lasted a total of 2 years and 18 days, or a total of 748 days, while Chapter 2 was 2 years, 1 month, and 20 days long, a total of 782 days, even longer than the first chapter, which included Season 0. Meanwhile, Chapter 3 was 1 year exactly, 365 days. And there are leaks out there showing that the current chapter will end sometime in the fall of this year, which would make it the shortest chapter in Fortnite history. You may find yourself wondering, why is this happening? What could have caused such a dramatic shift in Epic Games' development style? Well, in truth, Epic Games is just keeping up with the competition. While Fortnite was the first major battle royale to the console party, it was certainly not the last. Releasing free-to-play on September 26, 2017, the game was quickly followed by the console release of PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds that same winter, which was followed swiftly by the surprise release of Apex Legends on February 4, 2019, and of course Call of Duty Warzone only a year later on March 10, 2020. Each of these games began to siphon players from the initial Fortnite explosion, and we cannot discount the numerous smaller battle royales also released around this time. Just going through a brief list that I'm reading right here, we got Darwin Project, Spellbreak, Cursed, Hyperscape, and even newer titles like Blood Hunt, Naraka Blade Point, and the unfortunate failure of the wrestling-inspired battle royale, Rumbleverse. While none of those games attracted an audience on the level of Fortnite, and some of them didn't even survive more than a year, they did put extreme pressure on the Fortnite dev team to exceed expectations with every single update, setting the golden standard for live services, with constant map changes, new items, live events, crossovers, and even in real-life merchandise. In those first few years, Fortnite fought tooth and nail to be at the very top of the genre. But just as a rising tide can raise all ships, a shifting wind can turn the sails. Less than a year after its initial release, on October 1st, 2019, Apex Legends released its first brand new map, 2 weeks before Fortnite released Chapter 2, which, at the time, was a completely unknown variable. Though there may have been internal leaks between the studios that led Apex Legends to produce a new map so swiftly, it was notable that it took them a third of the time that Fortnite spent in Chapter 1 to do so. During Chapter 1, PUBG had released its second map onto consoles in May of 2018, meaning that Fortnite's first primary competitor, despite being mechanically inferior, and initially starting as an indie game developed by a single man, had managed to do something that Epic Games with all its resources and money had not up to this point. By now, so many changes had occurred to Fortnite's one and only map that it was virtually unrecognizable. And after some major questionable updates that pitted the player base against itself, by the end of Chapter 1, Fortnite had already experienced 2 major exoduses of original players. Unfortunately, the switch to a new map would be met with even more player contention. While the map itself was initially well received, getting praise from both creators and the player base following the rather unique Black Hole event, Chapter 2 soon fell into a drearily long update cycle, with the first 2 seasons running a combined 258 days, setting not just the number 1, but the number 2 record for longest Fortnite seasons ever, with the chapter starting season lasting 139 days all on its own. In this time, Call of Duty Warzone would release on March 2020 and explode in popularity, which meant Battle Royale players had 3 major competitive options to Fortnite during the global pandemic: 2 FPSs of vastly different flavors, and a more serious sim-style hybrid, which had apparently turned its focus to designing as many maps as possible. You see, in all that time Fortnite spent in Chapter 1, PUBG had designed 3 entirely new maps and even remastered their original one, making it work better with their now updated mechanics. And while Fortnite was stuck in the start of Chapter 2, PUBG used this time to remaster every single one of these maps. Unfortunately, when Fortnite finally emerged from the content drought to release Season 3 of Chapter 2, they did this with a map-destroying flood event. And while I personally enjoyed the novelty of it for a while, in reality this update violated many of the core principles of Battle Royale gameplay. It created extreme height differences between players, and removed many of the safer high loot drop spots from the map. I mark 2020 in general as the third and final exodus of the OG players, as overly long seasons and dreary metas eventually broke the will that had been whittled away by Chapter 1's continuous updates, which were meant to nerf building and elevate more casual players. Good players felt unsatisfied and left for Apex Legends, or the various other more niche but more competitive BR titles, and casuals moved over to Warzone as the time to kill was much lower and basic Battle Royale principles were still rewarded. This left Fortnite languishing, and thanks to Seasons 1 and 2 making Chapter 2 even longer than the first chapter, the game began slowly hemorrhaging its core player base and its identity. Chapter 3 of Fortnite began on December 4th, 2021, and by this point Apex Legends had added 2 more maps, bringing their grand total to 4. PUBG turned to producing smaller maps, and they actually produced 4 maps during Fortnite Chapter 2, bringing their grand total to 8 of 3 different sizes. In addition, Call of Duty Warzone's first new map, Caldera, was released less than a week after Chapter 3's launch. At this point, there was so much variety in the Battle Royale space that there really wasn't much reason to return to Fortnite if you preferred another game style, and especially if you weren't good at the building mechanic. Though we don't really have the numbers publicly available, I'm sure Chapter 3 was seen by Epic Games' internal staff as a huge disappointment in terms of player numbers. And at least in my anecdotal experience, it didn't really draw back any of my friends who had stopped playing the game at that point. Fortnite's success had now become its curse, as reaching critical mass that quickly meant that pretty much every player had already tried it, and those that didn't had an opinion on it that was incredibly hard to change. So Epic Games had to do something drastic. That big play turned out to be Zero Build Mode. On March 29, 2022, Epic Games added Zero Build Mode to Fortnite, coinciding with the launch of Chapter 3 Season 2. And though there was some controversy within the player base, mostly because for the first couple weeks of this update, you could only play Zero Build Mode, all accounts point to this move being an unmitigated success. Content creators that had long moved on from the game began to squat up and play. Existing creators began to shift their content, or at least dip their toes in both build and Zero Build Mode. And casual Battle Royale players, dissatisfied with their games of choice, began to give Zero Build Mode a try. And it turned out it was good. Damn good. Fortnite Zero Build brought along an entirely new parkour system featuring sprinting, mantling, and sliding, giving base Fortnite a mechanical depth on the level of Apex Legends, which is agreed by most Battle Royale players to be the deepest game in terms of movement mechanics. Fortnite didn't just take one step forward, it walked down the block, caught an Uber, and drove all the way to San Francisco. And with the other Battle Royales beginning to lose their novelty under the weight of questionable or derivative updates, or in poor PUBG's case, simply having their age catch up with them, Fortnite was now free to reign supreme across the wastes of the BR battlefield. However, this shift to split feature development signaled a major change in Epic Games' development style. The Valentine's to Summer events in Chapter 3 were some of the most basic in Fortnite's history. While Chapter 3 started with an entirely new set of weapons and items, many of the additions during the chapter were older recycled items, and live events were severely nerfed, with musical concerts relegated to individual creative maps. None on the level of Travis Scott's Astroworld or Ariana Grande's Rift Tour, which had happened only a year prior. The Halloween event was decent, but while everyone was looking forward to the winter event, Epic shocked the player base by ending Chapter 3 exactly 1 year after it started. Yes, baby! Haha! And that was a decent solo dub too. Like, we took a lot of we took some big fights too. Like, we took people in power positions. And I think that's really what made it easy, is like, we killed that John Wick, and then we killed the guy who was camping the hill. And those were probably our 2 biggest enemies that game.
Like what you see? Stop into the stream sometime. Be sure to like and subscribe to never miss a video.
Players were online playing Chapter 4 within 12 hours of Chapter 3 going offline. But during Chapter 3, Apex Legends had become derivative with their legend and weapon designs. Call of Duty released Warzone 2, which caused much controversy in the community as it fundamentally changed the principles of that game. And PUBG had begun to show its age, and went free to play in a desperate bid to maintain its Western relevancy. Players from the other Battle Royales flocked to Zero Build, and soon it was boasting numbers comparable to the core build mode, essentially doubling Fortnite Battle Royale's player base. Zero Build began producing streamers and sweats all its own, and soon tournaments in real life and in-game began springing up for this community. In March 22nd of 2023, Epic Games launched its Unreal Engine Fortnite system as part of its Creative 2.0 initiative, shortened to UEFN. Where before, creative mode had been a glorified set of Legos and simple switch triggers, UEFN gave players creative tools on a level unrivaled by Fortnite's contemporaries, such as Minecraft or Roblox. While the boundaries of the system are just being discovered, and you can find some videos on the best maps within this system on my channel by the way, the true direction of Fortnite's development became clear. Epic Games is refocusing on the casual market by establishing a yearly hype cycle. Chapter 3 was the blueprint, where they started off with a brand new map before immediately going into the holiday event, then making some map changes for Season 2 before getting into the Valentine's event, with a couple of anime collaborations like My Hero Academia or Attack on Titan to bridge the gap at the end of seasons. Season 3 brings the summer event, which has generally been the laziest of the last 2 years, but in Epic's eyes, I'm sure they think, it's summer. If you aren't going outside, you're probably going to be playing their game anyway, regardless of what the update looks like. And Season 4 makes up for it with a more game-changing Halloween update, which then leads into the end of chapter event. Sprinkle creator collabs from streamers and musicians into the game, and you pretty much have something new, though often minor, happening every single week in Fortnite. And while some players may complain that the individual changes are underwhelming, just a few short years ago, those same players were asking for more new maps more often. New maps require much more people developing and playtesting them than a simple update or map change. And this presents Epic Games with a choice. Yes, let's go, and they'll win! He got me to like single-digit health. What the f, bro? He hit that heady. He hit the heady. Do they produce a yearly chapter, complete with a new map and a star mechanic such as fishing, mount riding, or parkour? Or do they commit to longer chapters with more significant seasonal changes and bigger live events, but risk hitting major lulls if the player base doesn't respond to a particular update and it turns out to be a dud? Epic Games are masters of social media, and they understand that no news is the worst news. By maintaining this yearly hype cycle, Epic Games guarantees that Fortnite will be the most socially relevant Battle Royale, especially to young people, by ensuring that there's always something new to talk about within the game. And overall, I'm sure it gives the developers more wiggle room with deadlines, leading to less crunch and more vacation time. Though sometimes this cycle produces bad items or bad updates. These problems are often sorted out within a few days or at the very least by the next patch. So you never spend too long in a bad meta, which is a major positive in my eyes. There's also more variety in Fortnite than ever before, with both versions of Battle Royale present, including a ranked mode, a growing variety of player-created maps, including musical experiences that are essentially metaverse concerts, and even Save the World, the forgotten story mode of Fortnite, which allows you to use a variety of weapons and traps in a tower defense wave-style game. Ballsy. Ballsy. You know? I respect it. This mode alone regularly draws 20,000 players, despite people calling it a dead game. And let's be real, there are many developers that would literally kill for those player numbers on their games. I think we as players must accept that gaming has changed dramatically since Fortnite's initial release, and will continue to change at a rapid pace into the future. The Battle Royale genre, though holding a large player base, is far from its peak only a few short years ago. Epic Games' true skill has always been adaptability, finding a niche and filling it. With Unreal Tournament, they were the team-based, objective-oriented answer to Quake. With Gears of War, they were the cover-based answer to console arena shooters like Halo. And with Fortnite, they were the third-person console answer to the PC Battle Royale explosion. Now Epic Games wants to transition Fortnite into gaming's answer to the metaverse. In stark contrast to Mark Zuckerberg's or Elon Musk's pay-to-play vision, Battle Royale players are merely a part of this whole, only one of the demographics that engages with Fortnite as a platform. Yes! Woo! Let's go! Brutal Bastion win! Fred Chen, always. My lucky charm, bro. Upon the announcement of Creative 2.0, already players spent 40+% of their time within the creative system, and I'm sure that number has only risen since then. I personally think Fortnite is on the correct path and will definitely outlast every other Battle Royale. But what's more important is that the majority of players will be happier long-term with the game, and have more reasons to actually play it. It's easy to get melancholy about the past, especially when those times were so fun and interesting and you were playing with all of your friends. But I'm pretty positive about the general direction of gaming, and I go into those reasons why in these videos next to my head. Click on my head and be sure to like and subscribe. Wait, did clicking on my head not work? That's because you gotta click on the video art, my guy.